The Orchid Thief by Susan Orlean, first published in 1998, is a work of narrative nonfiction that explores the bizarre and fascinating world of orchid obsession. The book centers on the eccentric figure of John Laroche, who was arrested for stealing endangered orchids, specifically the rare ghost orchid, from the Fakahatchee Strand State Preserve in Florida. Orlean originally covered Laroche's story in a 1995 New Yorker article titled Orchid Fever. The book expands on that piece, chronicling not only Laroche's crimes and trial, but also Orlean's own journey into the world of orchid hunters, collectors, and botanists. The book was both a New York Times bestseller and a notable book, and it inspired the 2002 film Adaptation, starring Nicolas Cage, Meryl Streep, and Chris Cooper. The first chapter opens with Laroche's court case, where he faces charges for illegally harvesting over 200 protected plants from the swampy Fakahatchee Strand. His goal was to clone and commercially profit from the elusive ghost orchid. Orlean provides background on Laroche's life and details the courtroom proceedings. In Chapter 2, the narrative dives deeper into Laroche's involvement with orchids. At the time of his arrest, he was working as a nursery manager for the Seminole tribe of Florida. Orlean explains how he came to hold this position and joins him on a visit to a fellow nursery manager. Chapter 3 recounts Orlean's own visit to the Fakahatchee, accompanied by a park ranger. She hopes to witness a ghost orchid in bloom, but comes up empty, a disappointment that will recur throughout her quest. Chapter 4 shifts focus to the orchids themselves. Orlean explores their evolutionary history, structural uniqueness, and continued survival, highlighting the deep allure and complexity of these remarkable plants. In Chapter 5 of The Orchid Thief, Susan Orlean delves into the rich and often eccentric history of orchid collecting, focusing particularly on 19th century European collectors who were consumed by orchid fever. Their obsession led to dangerous expeditions and fierce competition over rare specimens. Chapter 6 follows Orlean as she attends an orchid show with John Laroche. She observes his interactions with other enthusiasts and reflects on the strange magnetism he seems to hold over people, despite, or perhaps because of, his unusual personality. In Chapter 7, Orlean recounts the history of the Fakahatchee Strand and describes her return visit to the preserve. This time, she seeks out some of the orchids Laroche had stolen, which have since been reintroduced to their native environment. Chapters 8 and 9 introduce a series of other orchid growers whom Orlean meets. Through their stories, she explores the passionate and insular world of orchid cultivation, uncovering rivalries, controversies, and the obsessive dedication many growers share. In Chapter 10, Orlean meets Lee Moore, a notorious international orchid smuggler. She chronicles his career poaching rare plants to supply collectors around the globe, shedding light on the black market for orchids. Chapter 11 shifts focus to the Seminole tribe of Florida. Orlean discusses the tribe's history, including the legacy of Chief Osceola and their more recent ventures into the gambling industry. She also recounts how Laroche ultimately loses his job with the tribe and describes her experience at a tribal fair. In Chapter 12, Orlean attends the South Florida Orchid Society show alongside Martin Motes, one of the growers she previously interviewed. The event offers further insight into the orchid community's culture and characters. The final chapter brings Orlean's journey full circle. On the eve of her return to New York, she and Laroche make one last trip to the Fakahatchee Strand in hopes of finally seeing a ghost orchid in bloom. Though they encounter other flowering orchids and ghost orchid plants, the elusive bloom remains just out of reach, mirroring the broader themes of longing and obsession that run through the book. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy this video, leave a like and subscribe.